needs the other more? Is it Saquon or is it the Giants at this point?
The Saquon absolutely needs the Giants a whole lot more right now. And the whole point is the problem with running backs, they're not going to get their money when they expect to get them. So if you're Saquon Barkley at the moment, what is the only way you're going to get it? Well, I look at what his production has been a season like last year. Saquon rushes for 1,300 yards. I think that's a great year. It's fourth in the league. But he only averaged 4.4 a carry. He had almost 300 carries last season, and that was 21st in the league. Out of the backfield, catching the ball. He's a check down guy. He's not an explosive Christian McCaffrey, make big plays in the open field type guy. And, you know, I understand that it may be a little bit unfair for somebody who's 27 and has been banged up in his career to not get this contract. But once the Giants locked up Daniel Jones long term, Saquon was not going to have many choices here. His only choice is to go play for the Giants at this point and do it on the franchise tag.
His choice could be to pull an Emmitt Smith. We know what happened with the Dallas Cowboys back in the early 90s. He wanted Thurman Thomas money. So they said, okay, well, we're going to hold off on this for now. Then they lose 2 games to start the season. They're like, okay, here's your money. I believe every bit of what Saquon's saying, what he said at his camp last month, that he might have to pull that card of not showing up for training camp, of not showing up for week 1 to let this team that has, by the way, Dallas to start the season. Let them figure out what they're missing when they don't have Saquon Barkley in the fold. I've said these stats 1,000 times. They're seared into my brain. Daniel Jones' effectiveness when he has Saquon Barkley on the field, 41 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, a 91.4 passer rating. When he doesn't have him on the field, pretty considerably worse. 16 touchdowns, 17 interceptions, a 77.3 passer rating. No defensive coordinator in his right mind is going out there saying, God, we got a game plan for Daniel Jones, and I know that's your guy.
Yeah.
They
that's
don't
a
have
great note you just gave, though, by the way, just to see that highlight the discrepancy when he's on the field or
No
not.
question.
And that's something that a team that's coming off a trip to the divisional playoffs, they don't want to mess around and find out what life without Saquon is like.
Oh, okay, but hang on a second. Here's the problem, and I'm sorry to say this.
Yeah.
Are the Giants legitimately a contender to win the Super Bowl? Or more importantly, do the Giants think that they are a contender in the NFC right now? If they were in the position that the Cowboys were that year, the Cowboys are trying to win another Super Bowl in the middle of a dynasty. That's a much different situation than the Giants are in right now to me. They're a team that came off of a playoff appearance this past year, but if you're looking at how they're building this, they don't expect to be a great team this year. They don't expect to be a 12 or 13 win team and really they may think they have a shot at the division if something goes wrong in Philadelphia. That's why I don't think that they are giving in. Jerry gave in because he wanted as many trophies as he could get at the time. They're not in this position to go and win right away. So if that's the case, I don't want to get fooled by the numbers for Daniel Jones because they are what they are. He makes him better. There's no getting around that. But in the end, what's the difference for the Giants at this point?
But don't you want to keep building momentum and move forward? Obviously, they exceeded expectations last year, having Dable as their head coach. You don't want to just mail it in now.
No, it's not mail it in. It's being smart in making the right financial choices here. Am I going to invest 26, 27 million in him for the next couple of years? Or am I going to take what I can get this year and pay him $10 million and maybe we come to an accord and say, we won't franchise you next year. Try to go get your money on the free agent market next season. To me, that makes the most sense because if there's one thing we're seeing, it's that running backs are at their most effective in their first 4 and 5 years of their career.
His value on other teams might fit your argument here that you can go and replace.
If it was Buffalo, yeah, maybe.
Any other team, really.
Yeah.
I mean, the Giants have built their offense around Saquon Barkley. It's not built around Daniel Jones. The play action is successful in this offense because you have a running back who can sell it. And that is certainly a huge part of all this. The NFC is as wide open, Chris, as it's ever been. And I know that they've got the Eagles in their division and they see that as a juggernaut. But this is their chance to be able to capitalize on what they started last year. They came from 4 wins 2 years ago.
You think they're better than the Cowboys right now?
I do.
You do?
I do think they are better than the Cowboys. The Cowboys are built differently. Because remember, this team didn't have a lot of wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt was the player that they just got, I believe, in the 3rd round of the draft. They got a new offense. They got a new center. Like they're trying to bolster things around Daniel Jones. But In order to do that, you should have your key piece right there. 29% of the offense went through Saquon Barkley in 2022. What's to say, like, how do you replicate any of that? Yeah, they got Darren Waller in the mix too. Are they all of a sudden just going to become a pass-heavy team for a quarterback who has had struggles with that in the past?
See, I think if you're not going to become a pass-heavy team, but what you're going to do is be able to navigate through if he's actually going to sit out a couple of games, which is the other part of this.
And if they start losing,
I don't buy that.
that's my thing. I look at the schedule: Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle, Miami, Buffalo, and that's all before week 6 of the season. If they're like 1-5 at that point, you don't think they're going to be looking back and saying, "This is our lifeline here, come back"? And also, I mean, he has to show up by a certain point because you have to accrue your season. You want to accrue your season towards free agency. I believe it's week 10. I think that he's not at all afraid to say, okay, see how much you miss me, and then down the line, because it's all about guaranteed money. If he's wanting that Derrick Henry deal that he signed after he was franchised in 2020, that's $25.5 million in guarantees. I don't think he's going to get that, but if you can split the difference here, maybe give him the guarantees of 2 franchise tags, which would be about $22 million.
Yeah.
That might be the way to do it.
I just don't want to gloss over a point you made. And I'm loving every second of it as a Giants fan. But you're standing on the New York Giants being better than the Dallas Cowboys.
The dysfunction that we saw in Dallas last year, are we so certain that Mike McCarthy being the play caller in Dallas is going to take that team to the next level? They had two number one offenses with Kellen Moore calling the plays. I don't necessarily think that it's the scheme itself that is the issue down there. It could very well be the players. And, you know, Dallas is they're compelling in the mix in the NFC East. I like the Giants.
You're not wrong about the Kellen Moore thing. They were still 4th in the league. Do we think they're going to go 4th in the league in scoring points and drop all the way down to 15th? I don't see that happening. They're going to score their points. And Courtney, like to your point about the beginning of the schedule, you think the Giants are looking at that and saying, if we bring Saquon back, we're going 4-2 in those first 6.
I think they have a much better chance of doing that than him not being on the roster. What are you going to do? Turn it over to the 5th-round rookie that they just drafted?
No, but I think it's also a case where they look at things realistically about where they are, and it could be more like 2-4. This is the point where you have a first-year coach last year with Brian Daboll, who had a
heck of coach of the year.
He was coach of the year. I hate to point this out, but we've had coaches who have come in and had a great impact in year 1, and then you have to take a step back. The Giants, talent-wise, are in that position. Look at a guy.
No,
I'll give you.
But don't you think the Bills missed having Daboll?
I think the Bills missed having Daboll because of the interception problem, but that's on Josh Allen. That's not on Ken Dorsey. Josh Allen's a big boy. He's getting all that money
without him, though.
But he's also a big boy. He's getting all that money. That's got to be on him. They miss him, but at the same time, Molly, to the point of other coaches, Eric Mangini won 10 games in his first year. They went to the playoffs. You know, I mean, Todd Bowles won 10 games in his first year.
I don't know. I think Daboll's the real deal.
I'm not saying he's not, but when I look at the Giants and their roster right now, Joe Shane was charged with coming in and fixing this. They got everything they could out of last year, Molly.
So what would you do? What would you do with the Saquon situation?
I would give Saquon this option. You're going to sign a franchise tag, and we will let you walk next year. We want you this year, and maybe we will talk about a long-term deal next year, which they won't. But we cannot afford to sink $25, $26 million into him for the next couple of years and make a bad decision when it comes to somebody who, as I illustrated earlier, the production is starting to fall a little bit. It's not where it was.
Where do you think they should be pouring more money into?
The Giants?
Yeah.
The Giants are looking to get better defensively all the way around. That's why they paid Dexter Lawrence all the money that they did. I think they're in a position where they have to get better there. They have to get better at receiver. And as far as running back is concerned, they have milked Saquon for what he's worth.
I just don't see why you end up giving Daniel Jones the extension that you did. I mean, it wasn't like
well, that's a whole nother discussion.
Earth-shattering money, but why you do that if Saquon's not going to be in the fold with him?
But what was their other option?
The short-term extension is pretty much all you can do, but the thought that you're going to get the most out of Daniel Jones without his safety net on the field is just it doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense. So when you go ahead and you give him that extension, the first thought is you have to give Saquon what he wants and then more.
Well, but here's the problem, okay? Even remember during the season, during the bye week, They offered him the contract extension. They offered him more money.
And he should have taken it.
He should have taken it. He
That's
turned
on
it
his
down.
representation.
I'm not arguing that they shouldn't have given him the 2-year deal that they gave Daniel Jones. They gave Jones that as very much a Band-Aid for the next couple of seasons. Let's see what you got.
Before we get into some NBA and bring in Kendrick Perkins, I just want to ask you this. Do you feel at this point, actually I want to pose this to you, Courtney, because of the side of the equation that you're on, that running backs are too undervalued?
I hate absolutes because, like, we have people in the NFL who say, never pay a running back. It's the dumbest idea of all time. That's not true. In certain circumstances, in how teams are constructed, the way that the Giants are constructed, they need Saquon Barkley to function as an offensive unit. San Francisco and what they did. Usually you don't see teams trading players for veteran running backs. Kyle Shanahan's system is requires somebody like that because then it becomes the quarterback-proof offense. You can have whoever you want playing in the offense. You're done are the days, though, of that $16 million salary that McCaffrey got initially from the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. But it doesn't mean that you can't find that all running backs are just easily plug and place. You go get somebody in the draft and you try to keep them, until year 4, and then you move on. The Chicago Bears, a team that I covered, tried to keep David Montgomery, who was just finished his 4th season. He ends up leaving to go sign with a rival in Detroit during free agency. They saw the value of that continuity of somebody who they know his rushing style fits their scheme offensively. They know what he can do, and he's been able to stay relatively healthy throughout his career. Saquon looked like a different player coming back from the ACL tear. And I just think that if you think that players like that are so easily replaceable, you find yourself in a situation where you're doing this song and dance year after year after year. We've seen these contracts, some of them, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, not age well, but it doesn't mean that every one of them doesn't age well.
No, but most of them don't. Because I looked at the top 10 paid running backs last season, and only 5 of them were in the top 20 running backs in production overall. So in other words, you can pay the guy, but there's a chance, even better chance, that you can find somebody else who may give you the same production. So yes, not everybody is Christian McCaffrey. He is a difference maker in every single way and absolutely perfect. Where the value is for the running back, and they are properly valued, you can take a guy in the first round. You can do that. 2 teams did that this year, and they'll reap the benefits of that. That's where the truest value is in those first few years. You're going to pay him, you're going to end up like the Cowboys with Ezekiel Elliott, who, not too long ago was a dynamic player, and now universally we all think he's shot. And with that being the case, they were paying him a ton of money, and it absolutely killed him. They had to get rid of Amari Cooper because of it. It put them in a bad spot.
Interesting point.
96% of the success rates of runs in the NFL over the last couple of years determined on 2 things. How many defenders are in the box and field position. If you have a dynamic talent at running back, you're going to exceed that and then some, and you're going to be able to beat those averages. I don't think you pay every running back. I'm not trying to bring back the 1980s, but I do think that there are certain circumstances, a Saquon Barkley, a Christian McCaffrey, the upper echelon of the upper echelon. Those are the players who are worth the money because, as we've debated, Saquon's more than just a running back. There's more to it than that.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.